So you ask, why do I say that paper charts are not going away? Well, the classic PDF paper charts that we've been using for many years are no longer being updated by NOAA, but they now offer the public an alternative way to get new paper charts.
And Tom, how does that work?
Well, let me first mention that NOAA, NOAA, is the U.S. National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. That's quite a mouthful. And they produce the bulk of the important technical information about our environment and the weather. They're good guys, and they're usually responsive to inquiries that you may make on their website. So if you have questions to them, don't hesitate to send them a question over their website. Well, NOAA has created a chart database that can be rendered into actual chart images, plus an application that allows users to create a chart of any area that they choose, specifying the chart scale and paper size. And then you have a full-size paper chart printed in full color. So,
So we don't need to use the NOAA classic PDF charts anymore, the chart sizes and the chart names.
well, no, actually, those classic chart numbers and charts are going away. They're going to disappear as far as being updated. So NOAA will still keep a lot of those charts in their historical chart files, but they'll be out of date. They won't be up to date. Also, some of the numbers, though, some of those charts you mentioned are being used by some of the commercial sellers, as we'll be describing later, and you have to be careful of that because they're not updated charts. So you'll be buying out of date charts.
Okay, but I like those charts. So why are we doing away with them? Why are they doing away with them?
Yeah, we all liked those charts, and we've got very, very accustomed to it. They were very good charts, very clear and very easy to read. But they're doing it for economy and efficiency. If you really stop to think about it, it was really very labor intensive for the NOAA cartographers to redraw or update old charts when changes were needed. And this actually required a lot of hours by a lot of people and could not be done frequently due to the time and the labor needed to update tens of thousands of charts. And then we're just talking about US waters. So we were actually using, in the past, out of date paper charts most of the time. Then, if we were very meticulous about keeping our charts up to date, we needed to consult the published correction lists and manually and laboriously make changes to our charts. And this we did forever, as I recall, except when we got tired of doing it. So,
Yeah, I used to have, I still have this little template that would allow me to make up-to-date changes on my charts, which I almost never did. It was just too much of a pain in the butt.
yeah, so all that update work can now be done by the NOAA folks just by changing a few digits in a database. And when a user like you or me looks at the chart in the NOAA ENC database, presto, the changes are made, and we can then create an updated paper chart whenever we want to. So this process takes a lot fewer labor hours on the part of NOAA and can be done more frequently, therefore, and it's practically in real time as changes are identified or needed by either NOAA or the Coast Guard or the Corps of Engineers, or even by mariners themselves. You can feed back to NOAA with a change that you feel is necessary, and they'll pick up on that.
Yeah, but why bother? I mean, what's all the fuss? We have all these wonderful modern electronics. Why do we even need paper charts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
now you've struck a nerve, Frank. And I know you know the answer to that question.
Yes, I do know the answer, and I personally would never go on a cruise at all without paper and pencil backing up, and without doing all the complete navigation planning that I need to do. Uh, Without, I got to have all that information available.
Yeah, so Frank, how do you actually go about doing this nav prep before a cruise?
Well, it's interesting. Okay, it's interesting to me. uh, Taking a look at one of our cruises, for example, if I were going to do a 104 class, the 104 is the ASA's bareboat cruising, and it's the one where you first start doing real travel point to point. Um, that's the one thing we're going to do is we're going to get everybody in the crew involved in that planning process.
Well, that
Uh,
sounds like a good procedure because it lends for better nav decisions during the cruise if everybody is familiar with the preparation before you go, huh?
Absolutely. And even when it was just Suzanne and I going down the intercoastal waterway or going down the coast to get to Florida, every time we did planning, she and I would both look at the charts because it was important that we both understood where we were going. So for again, if I'm going to do a 104 or a 106 Ardell Marva circumnavigation or doing the 108 to Bermuda or back, the first thing we're going to do, well, if I start out at the 104 level, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have all of our students if I have a class that has nobody who's taken 105, I'm going to have all of our students do watch our YouTube video, the Nav Preps for an Advanced Coastal Cruise, which lays out exactly what we want to do. And then we're going to get out the charts and we're going to plot our waypoints. We're going to determine what our track is going to be. Then we're going to examine that route and pull out the light list and all of the other uh, publications and verify that we have a good route. Once we do that, we're going to identify everything that we need. We're going to check the nav aids in the light list to make sure that they're there, and then we're going to check the local notice to mariners to make sure they're actually there. They're not off station or broken or something like that. Then we're going to measure distances. We're going to measure directions. We're going to put all of that into our nav plan. And then we're going to convert from true to magnetic to compass so that we have information that we're going to need on the boat in order to do things like calculating our estimated time of arrival. Once we got all that in, we're going to study that to make sure that everything makes sense. And then, and only then, will we put it, if we have an electronics suite like we do on Navigator. Navigator is our offshore 40-footer. It's the one that we use for anytime we're going into the ocean. For our lower level classes up to 104, we use our 32 footers, Academe and Scholarship. They don't have electronics. And once we've done that, we make sure that all of our waypoints are in the electronics, and then we use both the electronics and the paper to actually do the trip.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan, Frank. That's actually what I do also.
Yeah, it takes a while. In a 104 class, we spend almost half of the first day just doing the navigation preps for a 3-day trip. But it's important that everybody knows what's going on, because if something were to happen or if something were to change, we need to have a everybody knows what we're doing point to start from. Now, if you were going to do it with a family, I obviously, if I was going to take out uh, Suzanne and our grandkids, I'm not going to really get the 7-year-old involved in navigation planning. They're probably not there yet. Or if I was going to do a charter, I'm going to do for if I was going to charter down in the Caribbean, I don't know what that boat is. I don't know what that gear is. So I'm going to do all my planning based on the paper. And then when I get there, that's what I'm going to do. Now, so things are going to change based on your situation, but the fundamentals are the fundamentals.
Yeah. Okay, so
I stunned you.
yeah, you stunned me, right?
So, okay, well, you mentioned earlier that using the NOAA app, we can build our own charts. So, how does that work?
Okay, well, as I mentioned before, NOAA has a dedicated application on their website titled NOAA Custom Chart, NCC, where you can create a PDF chart. You, the user, can create a PDF chart for an area that you select and specify the chart scale that you want, the paper size for printing. And you can download that PDF to your computer and take the file to a print shop and have them print it in full-size color. And Staples and Buxmont will print these for actually under $15 per sheet. And I'm talking about a full-size sheet, like 36 inches wide by 48 inches, full color. Also, there's a number of online sources such as FedEx and Paradise Key and National Charts Online, among many others who will print them also. But the price range varies quite a bit, so you'd have to study what you're looking for. The print shop that we have been using for the past 30 years is Buxmont Office Supply. And if you send them your NCC PDF chart file, they'll print it on 36-inch, 20-pound paper in full color, times whatever length is needed, up to 48 inches, for $12 a chart plus shipping. Now, this 20-pound paper is lighter, but we find it quite adequate for charts that are not so expensive. When you go to Ocean Graphics and others of the big names, you're going to be paying a lot more for those charts. So we find a 20-pound paper being quite adequate. You can use it for a couple of cruises actually, and it's only 12 bucks a chart.
So okay. Now I know that when I've printed out some charts, or I've created some charts, sometimes I get details that are missing, or I get details that override. Sometimes there's just so much information in an area that it becomes unreadable. So how do you learn the details of making these NCC charts?
Well, this point about some crowded areas on those charts is important, and I deal with it in basically by choosing two different chart scales. One, I use a small scale chart, like 30 or 40 or 50,000 scale, which covers a large area. So by small scale, I mean that the objects on the chart are small. And then I designed other NCC charts for small port areas using maybe 8,000 or 10,000 scale. And I can print these, and these I call large scale because the objects are large on the paper as you look at it. And I have these printed on 11 by 17 inch paper, and Buxmont will print these for only $2 per sheet. So I can have several large scale charts on 11 by 17 inch paper for those port areas that are otherwise crowded on the small scale charts, if you follow that.
Yeah.
So as far as the details, there's a lot of support available. First off, NOAA has an instructional video on their website, going through it in a video description. And then Maryland School has a video on YouTube titled Electronic Navigation Basics.
Mm-hmm.
And we go through this that we've been talking about in that video as well. And a lot of what we're talking about in this webinar today is also reflected in that particular YouTube video of ours, Electronic Navigation Basics. And then also, we have the coastal navigation text titled Coastal Navigation Piloting, and that's what we use in our coastal navigation course, online course, and home study course as well. And then we have the course itself, our navigation course itself, starting Saturday, first Saturday in January, or second Saturday, January 11th, actually. And it's a 3-day online course, 3 full days of instruction, and then you can do the exam at home when you're ready to take the exam. I'll show you actually how to create an NCC chart. So let's see, I have to show my screen, I believe. Let me first go here. And go to Zoom. Show my screen. Sharing is not turned on. Rita, need your help.
Okay, hang on. I don't know why. Hold on.
All right.
Okay, Tom, go ahead.
Send request. Okay. Sharing, share. Okay. So do you see the Google screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So in here, I'm going to type simply NOAA, NOAA, NCC, and go for that. And then we get this link here, NCC. Click that. And on the NOAA website here, you see NOAA Custom Chart Application. Go there. And there's a whole set of instructions here. But basically, what I'm going to do is take this chart here and zoom in on it to an area that is recognizable. I'll use Cape Cod because that's a fairly distinctive looking object. So you're able to see what I'm showing on screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So there's Cape Cod Bay, Cape Cod. I'm going to go here to this middle icon with the small gear. And this is a panel that allows me to change some parameters. So it says custom chart, the name of it. I'm going to put Cape Cod. Cape Cod in there. And then it has scale. And I'm going to change that just to show you that you can do it. I'll put in 30,000. And then I'll go to paper size. And I have a whole range of choices, but I'm going to, for now, just select 34 by 44. And then it says portrait orientation, so I'm going to select landscape. So those are the parameters that I've selected for the chart that I want to create. And then I'll come down to the bottom of this panel, and you see two green buttons here. It says create new chart. I'm going to click that, move over to the chart, and you see I have a little crosshairs here, and I'm going to go and put it about there. Takes a few seconds, and it's going to create a rectangle on the screen that will represent the area of the chart that I'm trying to build. And there it is. Now, if you're not quite happy with the location of that, you can click this other button that says Move Chart, and I can move that chart. It has to respond to me first. There we go. And I can move that chart and say I want it there, okay? Then the next thing, this icon on the right here, the fifth icon with a circle, a green circle with a 1 in it, that 1 represents that there's one chart that I've created that is ready for a conversion to a PDF. So I'm going to click that icon, brings me to another screen, and you see at the bottom here it says export selected chart. So I export that, and you see it says here submitted. Now it's going to convert it to a PDF. It usually takes about a minute to do this, depending on the size of the chart you selected and so forth. And one of the things that I like about this NCC program is that it's using the U.S. Coast Guard NAV8 symbols, like for buoys and beacons and so forth. When we go to the full ENC, the NOAA ENC viewer, it uses the international symbols that we may not all be familiar with, but the chart number 1 publication shows those as well. But this NCC chart uses the Coast Guard, U.S. Coast Guard symbols. Now this, of course, this whole process that NOAA is doing for us is U.S. waters. It's not international waters, okay? So it's still creating that chart, processing 35%. It usually goes to about 50% when it completes. And it will be called a Cape Cod chart when you see it. So we're at 43% now, 44. And then when it's completed, you'll be able to take that PDF chart, file it on your computer, and then, as I say, take that file or email that file to a print shop, and they can print it up for you.
I have put Buxmont's link in there as well as many of the other things that you've talked about in the chat. So
Okay, great,
if you're
great.
not looking at the chat, make sure you take a look at that. I'm putting links as you mention things in there.
Okay, good. All right, now you see it says export succeeded. So I'm going to go here and open that. And with that, I see the chart. This is the chart we just created. All right. So I'm going to now take that chart. This is still in the NOAA app. I'm going to right click it and choose print. And that's going to take me to this panel where it says save as PDF. I'm going to click save. Okay. And then I'll save it to my computer, Cape Cod _1. There we go. Save. And I can now get out of the NOAA ENC. I'm going to close that out. And if I go to my chart, I can go for that Cape Cod 1. And here's that chart that I just created. Okay, now the other thing I want to show you here, I'm going to blow this chart up. If I press the right button, I'm going to blow this chart up and show you the quality of the chart. I'm zoomed way in, and you see these numbers that they're not distorted at all. So the point is that when you get this chart printed, it's going to be very high quality, okay? Because the information is there in that file to produce a high quality chart. The other thing that I'll show you is that appended to that chart might be a half a dozen pages of related information about that area that you just created a chart for, okay? Now, you don't have to obviously get all those printed. You can just leave them on your computer to review or your mobile device. But you now can have this chart printed, as I say, in full living color, okay? So that's how you create that chart. Let me see. So if I go back here and stop sharing my screen, get back to Frank and Tom.
Right.
Okay.
Tom, before you go on, I have a couple people asking about questions.
Right.
When Tom and Frank are done their discussion, we will ask for questions. However, hold them, jot them down on a piece of paper. Don't put them in the chat yet. One reason is we may answer that question as we go. And secondly, I will have trouble finding your questions in the long chat. So just jot them down. And we will answer all of your questions when we're done.
All right. Thanks, Rita. So, okay. So Frank, now that we have a PDF chart created, how do we turn it into a paper chart?
Well, it's relatively easy. NOAA actually has on that same website a list of vendors that can print, and they go everywhere from the big people like Ocean Graphics, as you mentioned, and MapTech, down to some really small names like Blue Water Books and Charts down in Florida, or there's a company called the Frugal Navigator, which is really frugal. And basically, if you contact them and let them know what you want, they will work with you to print it. In fact, some of them you don't even have to define your own PDFs. They have PDFs already. For example, Ocean Graphics has a what they've done is they've gone in and they've reset the same parameters that the Coast Guard had originally, or NOAA had originally. So, for example, for the Chester River chart was 12272. They now have a chart called 12272 OG, Ocean Graphics, which is their version of the same chart.
So basically, they've taken the NCC NOAA tool and created a chart that represents the original 12272 size and scope and everything, right?
Well, size and scope, yeah, but some of the data that should be there is missing. So uh, it's actually better for you to go in and create your own files, as you just talked about, so that you can adjust the dimensions to exactly what you want to see, rather than what the old system was.
Okay, so is this the only way to to get a chart now?
Not really. You can, like as you mentioned, any local blueprint shop is probably going to have a big printer for you, or any commercial print shop in your area. And the thing about that is that that actually creates a situation where you can now define the sizes you want to use, either in paper bond, as you mentioned. We use when Buxmont prints for us, they're using 20-pound bond paper, and you could have things printed at 11 by 17, rather than 34 by or 34 by 44, and that might be more convenient for your boat.
Yeah, and those 11 by 17 are only $2 each. So if you can have a couple of those, you're way ahead on that cost wise.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that if you, for example, the 12272, if you looked at that chart, the first thing you'd have to do if you brought it on board the boat is you'd have to fold it in quarters, because that's the size of the nav charts. And the other thing is that if half of that chart we never used anyway, so why print the right hand information if you don't need it? Why not just print two 11 by 17s?
Yeah, what about compass roses?
You can now, Ocean Graphics doesn't put their compass roses on, but if you are making your own chart through that PDF process you talked about, you can have the compass roses placed on those charts. It's actually one step further up in the process. Now, we don't use those compass roses. We use protractors, the triangles. If you watch our video on the video you created on YouTube on how to do the protractor using the triangle, it's much easier to do, and they work so much better for these charts. But of course, if you do that, you lose that variation information. So you have to go and find the variation information yourself, usually from a pilot chart would work.
Yeah, and I noticed that online NOAA has a what they call a magnetic variation calculator. They call it declination for any location on Earth, and I think Rita will probably send you the link for that too. So, well, that's good, Frank. But what about cost? Are the charts more expensive than the older charts?
To be honest, the price is all over the mark, all over the mark there. Some companies, because this is not a big part of their business, they're going to charge a lot for those charts. Some of them, because it's really their niche, you can get them like Buxmont, as you mentioned with Buxmont, it is really, really cheap.
Yeah. Well, we actually do this for our cruises at the Maryland School, and we find that these affordable prices are good from the standpoint of using the 20-pound paper and use it for a couple of cruises and then throw them away and get new charts. You probably have to get updated charts anyway. So
That's true. And a lot of these companies will actually print the old raster-based PDF charts, the ones that do look the way you expect them to. Of course, they're out of date, but any prudent mariner is going to update their charts anyway before a cruise, because, as you said, those charts coming from 20 years ago were out of date when we bought them, and we had to bring them up to date using things like the local notice to mariners and the light list and all that kind of information anyway. Or you can get chart books. MapTech makes chart books for a lot of areas in the U.S. For example, we carry the Chesapeake and Delaware bays in a chart book just as a backup on Navigator.
yeah, and they're not cheap either. I noticed that chart book's around $150, and
It is, but that's a whole lot cheaper than getting all of those charts
Yeah,
individually.
yeah. But even though you buy that chart book, they're still out of date charts. That's the point of it. But I know that well.
Yeah, and the other thing is, this is U.S. charts. Is you think about it, well, for example, when we do the Bermuda run, as you know, we have to buy paper charts from the British Hydrographics because they're not electronic. They're not going through this system.
Yeah, that's true. So we have a lot of options for getting paper charts that we need for planning and underway navigation. So it really looks like paper charts are really not going away.
No, no.
So, Frank, we've been talking about navigation charts, but what about the supporting reference publications that we mentioned earlier?
Well, that's a good thing too. Again, there are going to be things like the light list, the local notice to mariners, the broadcast notice to mariners, chart number 1. All of those are important to have on board or have available to you when you're doing your prep work. And all of those are actually available online as PDFs. Let me show you real quick. Okay, so this is the NOAA website. And
We're not sharing your screen yet.
up. It's still, did it come up yet?
Not here yet.
Okay, it says I'm screen. It says I'm screen sharing.
I see it, Tom.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, got it. Okay.
All right. So anyway, this is the NOAA website, this Office of Coast Survey, and they have this drop down for publications. And the two important ones on this particular screen are the U.S. Coast Pilot, which is the government's version of a cruising guide for various areas. And you can see that there's a Coast Pilot for the Great Lakes, Coast Pilot for the New England area, Atlantic coast from Cape Cod to Sandy Hook, and then our particular area, Sandy Hook to Cape Henry. And you can just download that. It's free. Also on that same website, going back, we have the U.S. chart number 1 with chart symbols. And I'm going to open this one because I have it as a PDF, because it does take a long time for this one to download. There we go. This is symbols, abbreviations, and terms used on paper and electronic navigational charts. This is the, a lot of times when you're looking at a chart, it's got symbols on the chart that you may or may not be familiar with. So, come on. I downloaded this PDF because I specifically knew it would take too long to open. There we go. And this actually lays out exactly what all the symbols on the chart are. And if we look at, for example, this is positions, distances, directions, and compass. The left-hand column is the international symbol. The middle columns are NOAA and NGA. NOAA is U.S. information about U.S. charts. NGA is U.S. information about other areas. And then finally, ECDIS. ECDIS is the electronic charting and data information systems. This is what the commercial people are using. In a lot of cases, if you're running your electronics, that's the electronic navigation system. But a lot of the ENC systems are now using the ECDIS symbols. And this was what Tom was talking about earlier, where we're using the Coast Guards, using the NOAA system. The NOAA is still using these symbols, although according to chart number 1, it does say one major difference in the use of paper charts and the ENCs is the ability of the ECDIS to display the same feature differently depending on user settings and other conditions such as the ship's draft. An important example is that ECDIS displays things that are under the boat in different symbols if they're deeper than the depth of the safety contour set for the ship. So that information is going to change depending on what you have set the process for. Now, when we talk about stuff from the Coast Guard has what they call maritime safety information, and this is where we're going to find things like the light list, the local notice to mariners, and the broadcast notice to mariners. Now, light lists, the old system for doing a light list was the annual book, and that was set up by Coast Guard district. And so the Coast Guard district, District 5, which is our district, would have a light list volume 2 for the year. And it's going to have information that was current at the beginning of the year. So this is what this looks like. And it says the light list should be corrected every week from the local notice to mariners or notices to mariners as appropriate. Now, one of the things we gotta say at this point is that we don't know if there's a 2025 light list. And the reason for that is because when we go back to the Coast Guard's maritime, they now have weekly light lists, and the weekly light lists for District 5, for example, District 5, you can get the January 2024, or you can get just the information up to date. Now, it's exactly the same information that's in the book, only it's being generated as a electronic data dump, and so it's actually going to have a different pieces of information. And what I want to do here is I want to blow this up a little bit so it's easier to read. One of the more interesting things is that you can see this buoy number 3, light list number 3 here is in the 2024 book. Number 5 is in the 2024 book, but this one, number 4, attentive energy lighted data buoy A, that's not in the book. Okay. Now, for some reason, the last time I looked at this, there was just one line for this. Now there's 2 lines for it. So this is more up to date than the local notice to, or than the annual light list. So the annual light list may go away and simply be something you're going to download on a daily basis or a weekly basis. Now, in addition to that, we have, going back to the original, we also have the local notice to mariners, and we can get the local notice to mariners by Coast Guard district. Again, coming down to District 5, we can get these as a PDF. This is the most recent one. It's week 49 of 2024. And we pop that open. And again, this is going to be a document. So it's searchable, but it has a lot of information in it. But going back to that same page, we actually can get this same information in a different format now. This is the MSI Products app. And now we can actually print, we can come down to exactly the area we want to look at. So again, if I was going to look at the Chester River, this is going to bring me down to the Chester River and give me all of the information about the Chester River. Now, this is where Tom was talking about the his ENC, his NCC chart had the old style Coast Guard information. Now, this has got the new ECDIS information. So this chart, this right here is the red number 6 in the Chester River. That's a none, so it has, the symbol has a pointy top. This is number 7, it's a can, so the symbol has a flat top. And now I can actually print the light list or the local notice to mariners directly from here, from the District 5, and then give it a waterway, and I can tell it, show me information related to the Chester River, submit that, and now I'm getting data for the Chester River from the local notice to mariners for that area. Okay. Advanced change, notice of change on or about December 2nd, which was 4 or 5 days ago. The Coast Guard will establish new year-round ice buoys for lighted buoy 6. The new buoy, so they're replacing the old buoy with a new buoy that will be there they'll be there all year round. The reason for that is that in the past, that buoy was replaced in the wintertime with a non-lighted buoy. Okay. Now, I have to say that this is totally new. This product just came out yesterday, so we really don't know a lot about it. What we have been using, Tom and I have been using this application, which was created by our own Captain Ali Sayu. He created it before the Coast Guard was able to do theirs, and so now I can create Chester River using those same things, but now all I have to do is define my area by a picture, generate the light list number, and now this is giving me all that information on the fly. And as I change my dimensions, it's actually changing what I'm seeing. Okay. So, and then the last thing I can do, going all the way back to the Coast Guard's website, broadcast notice to mariners, I can actually get it to give me an RSS feed, so it would feed me that information as I needed it going forward. Broadcast notice to mariners are things that the Coast Guard wants me to know in a more immediate method. Now, a lot of that information can actually come up on the VHF radio. If the Coast Guard wants it to be really important to me, they can actually broadcast it on the VHF radio, which is great when I'm operating, not necessarily as useful when I'm doing my prep work. Okay. And the important thing to remember is that all of that information, that's a lot of stuff to put out there real quick. If you do the 105 class with Tom in a couple of weeks, he's going to go into that on a much more detailed basis, and you're going to get a much better understanding of what that information is and why you need to know it. All right, Tom, I beat it to death.
Yeah, the big takeaway on all of that, Frank, is the fact that when you go out on the water, things are not static. Things are always changing. Buoys get replaced. They get run over by a ship. Something happens to a depth. Somebody sunk a boat somewhere, you know. So things are always changing on the water, and we therefore have methods with the stuff you just outlined of getting up-to-date information. So even though we print an NCC chart today, and we're using it next week, we still want to reference the light list and the notices to mariners and all that sort of a thing in prep for this cruise that we're going on, to know what is the latest information, because things change. You might have even prepared the NCC last week, and this week a buoy got wiped out by a storm. You know, so this is our method for staying up to date with all of that. Well,
so what are your thoughts on on electronic navigation in general?
Yeah, well, Frank, the super electronics that we have today, they've really entered full force into the world of sailing. You now go on a boat, a modern very expensive boat and it's got all kinds of electronics coming out your ears. But these new electronics and new features come with a bit of confusion about how to best adapt them to our navigation planning and practices when we're planning a cruise. And this can be a double-edged sword that produces significant benefits, but also can be a distraction to basic seamanship skills and essentials. Modern sailors need to balance these competing forces and establish personal practices on their boats that use the best of both worlds, these slick electronics and seamanship essentials.
So what are the pitfalls that you see of those electronics?
Well, I like the electronics and I regularly use them on our cruises, but always in conjunction with paper and pencil navigation, as we've been talking about. Relying entirely on the electronics can leave the mariner unprepared for the many hazards that may exist and hidden below the level of what you see initially. In 2020, the Coast Guard recreational boating accident statistics showed that 3 of the top 5 accidents were related to navigation errors.
So can you talk a little bit about what the currently available electronic charts are, software and the hardware and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, okay. The NOAA electronic navigational charts, the ENC that we've been talking about, they're the gold standard in terms of accuracy and ease of updating and so forth. NOAA works in conjunction, collaborating with the Coast Guard, Corps of Engineers, and other agencies, and they created and they maintain the original organic or electronic chart database. This information is free to the public and are continually updated as physical changes occur in the waterways to navigate and so forth. And there are commercial companies such as Garmin, Navionics, Lowrance, and others that use proprietary charts. Initially, when Garmin, for example, prepares their proprietary charts, they initially base their charts on the NOAA data. Then they add their own bells and whistles that provide additional features, and they charge substantial fees for these charts. But the issue is, you buy that chart for a pretty price, okay? You load it with an SD card into your computer, and now you have that chart fixed as of January 15th, let's say, in your plotter, in your Garmin plotter. But now a week later, there's a change in some buoys on the waterway that you're going to be sailing. Well, those changes are not reflected in that Garmin chart that you purchased. You have to get an update. And normally when you buy these charts, these electronic charts for your multifunction plotter from any of these companies, you normally have update options. But to get those updates, you normally have to go to an SD card, download it on your computer, put that into your multifunction plotter, and then you've got an update as of that moment. But using the NOAA ENC and software that will use that ENC, I can update those charts easily at any time.
But there's a range of features and capabilities in those software. What are your feelings on that, all that extra stuff?
Yeah, I'll go back to my basic premise that what I want to use charts that are frequently, easily, and fully updatable. And when I emphasize that point, I called Garmin and had some discussions with them on it. Will you use the NOAA ENC charts? No, we don't do that. And then I asked them, well, how often do you update your charts? And they said, well, we make thousands of updates. Yeah, but my question is, when was the last update made? Do you fully update those charts? So the point that I'm making is I prefer software and hardware that use the NOAA ENC data as it is, and I'll only use equipment that serves that requirement. So this breaks down into 2 categories: hardware and software that use the ENC data, and those that don't. And this leads to the hardware, including computers and mobile devices or multifunction plotters.
Yeah, and the multifunction plotters are usually hardwired into the boat, and they have the online the operational peripherals like radar and depth and GPS, all that kind of stuff. But you're right. The only multifunction display that I know of are the Furono MFD 12 plotters. I think are using ENC. But what about those computers and multifunction devices or multiple devices? What do you got on that?
Yeah, computers and mobile devices that use software compatible with NOAA ENC database include, that I know of, OpenCPN, Rosepoint Coastal Explorer, one is called QTVLM. That's quite a mouthful. I don't know what it stands for, by a company online called Meltimus.com. Then another one, CClear, open source, and open source means that it's free, and Time Zero. Those are the ones that I know of, and I consulted with NOAA on this, and these are some of the ones that they offered me as alternative. So these are electronic navigation programs that allow on-screen navigation and plotting in real time with boat location and movement, boat movement, when connected to a GPS input. And of these, I've only used myself, OpenCPN, which is a free app, and Coastal Explorer. And these do all the essential navigation tasks, but use the free NOAA charts that are easily updatable with online download directly to your computer without the need for an SD card. So I can quickly do an update from the internet whenever I start a cruise. No sweat, no cost. And I like that stuff.
Yeah, now and getting kind of off on a tangent here a little bit. You've been teaching the coastal navigation now for almost 30 years, more than 30 years, and I've been watching for at least 10. And every year you talk a little bit more about the electronics, but you've always gone back and emphasized those fundamental skills. The ability to do to use a paper chart to create a navigation plan that's going to have distances and the what the compass course is going to be and how to use that to create a dead reckoning, how to put that information onto the chart, and how to do the operational stuff. Do you see that changing anytime in the future?
Well, I'm sure that as electronics continue to develop and people become more and more skilled at using electronics for everything that they do, that interest in paper charts and references are probably going to atrophy, probably going to go away for most people. But as an old sea dog, I continue in my belief that we learn through the use of basics, and electronics take you away from the basics. When you skip the basics of paper chart plotting and reference lookups, you do not know the ingredients of why you sailed, why the course that you sailed has brought you to this particular location. You only know that the computer told you the answer without you knowing the contributions of various factors like the wind, the current, sail trim, leeway, the steering skills of the person on the helm, and so forth. But if you know these things, you are better able to work on improving boat operation because you know the ingredients, boat operation and navigation. So also there's a basic premise that I have, and that is playing, for example, playing tennis against a weaker opponent reduces your tennis skills. Docking a boat with a bow thruster reduces your docking skills. Navigating strictly by electronics reduces your navigation skills. I could go on with this philosophy all day long, but I'll just close by inviting you to join our online ASA 105 coastal navigation class starting Saturday, January 11th, where we will talk about all of these things in much greater detail, and we'll have the opportunity for interaction on those. So thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you there. Rita?
Rita?
Yes, I'm here. Okay, fabulous. So we have some Q&A coming up. I do just want to mention a couple things that I thought of with what Tom just said. And I talk to students all day long. Oh, I can't. And I agree, the methodical planning and not rushing through the paper and pencil planning phase. This should be done for not only safety but confidence reasons. We do have that cruise planning video on YouTube. I did put that in the chat. So that link is there. And we recommend the ASA 105 coastal navigation for any cruising sailor. So if you're a day sailor, just leaving your home port, going out and sailing, coming back at the end of the day, you probably don't need these details. But if you are a cruising sailor, leaving your home port, going to places that you don't know, you really should understand how you got there and where you are. We had, as Frank mentioned, all of the navigation we do in the 104 is very pertinent. We use that 105 navigation. So for anybody who is planning to do any cruising, whether it's the ASA 104 or cruising on your own, we recommend the 105 before that. So 105 before 104. And that's because we do a real cruise, 5-day cruise, and we are using paper and pencil navigation. So that's important if you are planning to do 104 this season, do the navigation this winter. The other group that I usually recommend the navigation for is our non-sailing spouses and partners. And the reason is they can really benefit from taking the course and then participating in the navigation, both again from the safety point of view and the confidence and the inclusion in what's going on the vessel. So for non-sailing spouses, I usually recommend ASA 101, just to have the basics, to be safe, what to do in emergencies, the docking class, which is a totally different skill from sailing, but big help for non-sailing spouses and partners, and then the navigation. And those three things together are really good for your non-sailing partners to do. And so the navigation, we offer it by independent study, which means that we basically send you the video, the books and some videos chart. You work through it at your own pace on your own. When you're ready, you let us know. We send you the exam. So the whole thing is done at home. The exam comes back to Captain Tercey. He grades it himself. And he signs your logbook. So if you want Tom Tercey's signature, it's, his autograph. You want to do it with the Maryland School. And then so that's the independent study. We also have our full-length online class, which is 3 Saturdays, 9 to 5 for 3 Saturdays. There's 2 weeks in between each class for you to do your homework and prepare for the next class. So that starts on January 11th. Is the first class date. Everything I talked about with the independent study applies. The only difference is that you will have Tom teaching you for 8 hours a day for 3 Saturdays. So, and in that class, there are, there's discussions, you can ask questions. So this is not like this where it's a one-way thing. We do have it's an interactive class, just like if you were sitting in the classroom, you just don't have to leave home. So we have those 2 options for coastal navigation. We have the same options for celestial navigation. And I know a lot of students are here that have already taken the coastal navigation. The celestial navigation is also available if you want to go further with that. We do have an offer, which this is the first time we're saying this, but if you have attended this class and you register between now and next Friday, Friday the 13th, so that's easy to remember, you need to register by Friday the 13th, you do get a $50 discount off of the coastal and the celestial. navigation, so either ASA 105 or 107. So you cannot use the registration form on the website since that will charge you full price. But email me, office@mdschool.com, include your name, phone number, and US postal mailing address, and I will take care of that. I will register you for the class and send you an invoice directly that reflects the discount. Okay. I will post the link to the class information in the comments here in a minute. Oh, and by the way, we have over 40 free videos on our YouTube channel. So visit us there and subscribe. I'll put that link also in the comments. Okay, so what we're going to do now, if there are questions.
Excuse me, before you go on to that, let me take the screen back. I want to show one thing before you take your questions, all right?
Okay, I think you can share. Go ahead and click share.
Share. Okay, here you go. We've talked about getting the NOAA NCC, which is how you created the PDF chart, but also want to show you the basic NOAA ENC website. So I typed into Google NOAA ENC. I got this link, brings me to this ENC navigational charts. And then there's a link here. It says ENC Viewer. I'm going to go to the ENC Viewer. And here you can see, I'll zoom in on some parts of this. And here you can see basically the ENC Viewer. And in this, oh, wait, I'm not sharing. Yeah, I am sharing my screen, right? So in this, you can actually see the ENC charts, and you can rummage all around in this thing and get your information. But I just wanted to point out the ENC Viewer. That's the overall website. NCC is part of that website. Okay, that was all, Reed.
Okay, great. So what we're going to do, Tom and Frank, do you want to take a quick 2-minute break or
No, I'm all right.
Yeah, I'm
okay
good.
to continue? Okay.
Yep.
So we will go ahead and put in the chat if you have a question. Let me go back. I'm not going all the way back. I'm going to go back just a few minutes in the chat. One request is please list the integrated product mentioned in the notes for use to refer to after the presentation. There are a lot of links that both of you threw up. I think what we'll do is gather a list of that links and I will send it to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll send a PDF or something. Okay, so we will do that. Let's see. Frank, can you review how to get a compass rose on a selected NCC chart if you wanted to do that?
Absolutely. I'm going to share my screen here real quick. And this is was Tom was talking about using the chart settings. In between number 4 and number 5, there's a compass rose, and if you click on that, you can add compass roses. So for example, I've got a compass rose here. I've got a chart here that is the part of the Chester River. So if I want to, I can now select the active chart and add a compass rose. I could add a compass rose right there. If I wanted to, I could move that compass rose down to here. And if I need to, I can delete that compass rose. Okay. And then once I go to the export function, I can export my selected chart. And it's going to do that same export function that Tom had earlier. So we're going to whistle while it comes up. And if it did, it would actually have those, once it processed, it would have those 2 compass rows on that chart as we go along. And it's going to take just another minute. So if you want to start looking for another question while this is going along, I'm hoping that it's not going to take much longer than another minute, and then we'll be able to see those.
Frank, why don't I go ahead with another question and then we'll look at that.
Absolutely.
Okay. We have a comment from Kevin. He says, and this school carries weight with insurance carriers. I know that from personal experience. We have heard that from students quite a bit. We had one student that had gone through 108 with us and then got his US Coast Guard license. And he went to his insurance company and they hoping to get a reduction. He said, no, you've been through the Maryland School through 108, you're getting the best reduction we can give you. So we have heard that before. Okay, how does one navigate with up-to-date info and charting in the BVI and other Caribbean waters?
Well, the thing is, as Frank pointed out before, first off, you have your pre-planning. You know where you're going to be chartering, and you know that you want to get the charts for that area, so you want to get paper charts. Now, if it's in the U.S. Virgin Islands, let's say that's part of U.S. territory, you're going to be able to get those through the NOAA system. But if it's in foreign locations, there's a whole variety of ways depending on the foreign locations. But the first point is get the paper charts. And before you go there, do the pre-planning on the areas you're going to be sailing. There's also a lot of reference books, and NOAA actually, or NGA, the U.S., this is a mouthful, National Geospatial something Administration, NGA. They're under the DOD. They publish cruising guides for various areas outside of the U.S. So those are good things to get for a non-U.S. location. But you want to do that advanced prep with the paper charts, whatever references you're able to get before you get there. And then when you're there, depends on the electronics or non-electronics that might be on that chartered boat. Key point is do the pre-planning before you go there.
And
Okay.
can you see can you guys see my
Yep.
and you can see how it dropped those compass roses exactly where I put them on that chart. So there you go.
Fabulous. Okay, great. So Tim asked, and this is a common question that we get. He says he can't attend the first day of the 105. So what do we do? He can apparently do the other two. I have that question a lot. I can't make one of the three. If you can't make two of the three, you should probably just do independent study. If you're going to miss one of the days, you can still take the class, treat the first day's materials as a home study. In with the materials that we send you, we will have a recorded version. It's on DVD. You'll have to get a Amazon plug and play. If you don't have a DVD, they cost about $20. You can play that, and that is the lecture portion of that class. So you will be able to watch the lectures. And then if you need help during that 2 weeks, you can email Tom and he will answer questions if you can't figure that, and then get your homework done and then pick it up the next day. That first day's class is a lot of the very basic of coastal navigation. Day 2 gets into the weeds. Would you agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, the other thing, Rita, is we have all those videos, private videos that
Right.
you can refer people to.
Right. So with the 105, you do get access to some videos that we have recorded. There's maybe 15 of them on actually solving some of the solutions.
Solutions to problems, right?
Right. When will ASA electronics class be available? We do not do the ASA electronics class for a few reasons. Somebody did mention here, ASA electronics is Garmin Navionics sponsored. We are, but we teach it during the 105 class. Okay.
Yeah, chapter 8 in our book.
Chapter 8 in the book, right. So the book was updated last year to include electronic navigation. So we do have that available.
Well, let me jump in and make a comment there. Electronics course. There's two aspects to this. One is the basic navigation skills and how you can get the data, like I've described to you here earlier, using the NOAA NCC ENC data. Okay, download it to your computer and do your navigation on that. The other aspect is manufacturers, electronic equipment manufacturers, instruction books. So there are many electronic equipment manufacturers, and each of them have their own instruction book. So we're not going to be teaching instruction books for a Garmin plotter or instruction books for a Simrad plotter. Okay, that's just reading the instruction book. We're teaching in that electronics how to use the basic electronic data, electronic charts that come through NOAA. Okay, and go ahead, Frank.
I want to say something. If I can say something right here, ASA has a class, ASA 115, that has been in the background for years, and they have been talking about how they're going to have this ASA 115 electronic navigation endorsement for years, and they have never been able to come up with exactly what that's going to be. In the newest logbook, there is, I think, an ASA 115 navigation endorsement sign off, but that class does not actually exist yet. The ASA is still working on trying to figure out how they're going to do it, because they're going to have to figure out how to teach it without doing those things that Tom's been talking about with the well, how do I do this on a Garmin? How do I do this on a Lowrance? How do I do this? And they have never figured that out to date. So there is a class in the ASA system. It's just never, there are no certified instructors, and there's no certifications available to it yet.
So our basic approach is we're going to teach fundamental navigation. We're not going to teach the instruction book for a particular manufacturer. And I believe that's what others may be focusing on.
Yeah, and that does, I've had that question from, again, directed to the non-sailing partners. I don't know how to use that thing. Again, but if you understand navigation in an emergency, you understand where you are because you've looked at the charts. So they can take, it's not something you're going to often be able to pick up, you know, on the very quickly on the electronics. Question, don't you think the commercial map book companies will start using the ENC data and at least produce an annual update?
As an interesting fact, I actually talked to the MapTech people, the guys who actually run MapTech at the Annapolis Sailboat Show, and they are trying to work with the Coast Guard right now to figure out how to create their paper-based books on a continuing basis from that ENC data. So yeah, MapTech is actually working with that right now. They're just trying to figure out the details.
And one other thought, Frank earlier mentioned Oceanographics producing charts using the NCC tool application to create a NCC chart similar to the Chester River 12272 chart. Okay, they call 12272 OG for Oceanographics. But again, when you buy that book, if they've done that, they may be up to date the day that they print the book, but 2 weeks later, they're out of date. Okay, so you're still always going to be dealing with out of date charts. And that's why I am urging people to download their own NCC charts just prior to their cruise. just prior to their sailing adventure.
Yeah.
And if you have the equipment and the software to do that, as I've mentioned, if you go out sailing every week, you can download it new every week. It's not going to cost you anything except $15 to print the chart, maybe.
Yeah, and circling back to that, if I do a charter, I'm gonna make the decision to do the charter 5, 6 months ahead of time. And I'm going to have that 5 or 6 months period to do this navigation planning on. So I could have a chart created let's say let's say I'm going to go down to the Caribbean in March. Well, I could have the chart created in November and do all my planning, and then have another copy of that chart. I could recreate that chart in the end of February and see, hey, what are the differences between what I did originally and what I've got now? But I've done all that planning up to that point. I could take the most recent version with me down to, Charlotte Amalie, or down to, wherever I'm flying into. But I've done all my planning from that paper chart 4 months ago.
One other thing on that score is that the NCC application on the NOAA website allows you to save that chart that you created, the NCC chart that you created, to file. And then there's a way in order to just update that chart that you previously created. I didn't talk about that, but that ability is there.
That's a really good point. Okay. Where can I find charts for international waters? Where do they get the paper charts?
Frank.
It's going to depend on where you're going. A lot of if you're going to Martinique, that's going to be the French websites. If you're going to Canada, you're going to Mexico. One of those places that they talked about being able to print charts from, Blue Water Books and Charts down in Florida. They've been a great resource for me for years for charts outside the U.S. area. The Frugal Navigator, I was looking at their website, and they have that. They have a lot of stuff from non-U.S. waters. But you do a Google search and say, show me how to find charts for Canadian waters. You're going to get the Canadian navigational sources up there. Now, if you're going to go to Thailand, you're going to go to Southeast Asia. That's a different set of charts and a different set of functionals that you're going to have to get into. I definitely would start with talking to the people at Blue Water and find out what they're going to recommend.
Let me just add to that. There's basically two aspects, I think, to getting that information. One, for the maritime countries, England, France, Australia, Canada, various ones, they have their own admiralty offices.
Yeah.
And if you go to their website, like if you just Google Canada Admiralty or Canada Maritime Charts or something, you're going to get their website of the Canadian equivalent of NOAA. Okay. So that's one place to start. And they generally offer charts for sale. Okay. So that's one whole area. Go to the country itself and Google it and see what they offer and their prices and so forth. Then Frank mentioned Blue Water Sailing in Florida, but there are a number of companies that you can Google. Oceanographics, Maryland Nautical, Blue Water Sailing, there's a lot of them. And they offer charts for all the foreign locations at a price. You want to pay for the stuff, it's available. So there's the two basic sources. Go to the countries or go to the commercial companies that offer these things.
Okay, great. Bob asks, it's interesting. He says it's interesting point about the multifunction display manufacturers using their own custom charts, but aren't those based on NOAA ENCs?
They are based on NOAA ENC initially, but then they add their bells and whistles just to make it, sweeter for you to buy. And then they charge you $250 for it. And then the day you buy it, it's out of date already. That's my only negative on that. Those things are out of date when you buy them.
And Tom, to that point, we have a Garmin on Navigator,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And so how do you deal with that situation?
It's always out of date. I operate in parallel with that. So I have the Garmin on Navigator, uh, and I'm using the Garmin charts, and I do an annual update, and I can periodically update with the SD card like we've talked about. But I supplement that information with the latest NCC chart, which I either print or simply, by the way, either print it or have it on my iPad. All right. I don't necessarily have to have it every chart printed. I can do the NCCs, get a PDF, put it on my iPad, and supplement. Now I'm using the Garmin multifunction on Navigator, which is now out of date because I know the day I bought it was out of date. All right. It is 3 months later. I can, I'm now sailing through a critical area, important area that I want to make sure I have the latest information. I go to all of this NOAA and Coast Guard online information that we've outlined here, the NOAA ENC, the NOAA NCC, all the light lists, the notices to marine, all those sorts of things. And I supplement, and when I want to get an accurate answer on is that buoy still operational today, I can find that information out.
And then that goes into the nav plan book. That goes into our book that it's sitting on the nav deck so that we can look at that.
Right.
Because we know the charts, we know Garmin's not up to date. We know that information's not up to date.
And when you're sailing, you may not have service to your iPad. So you are doing the PDF right before you leave. You're creating that up-to-date PDF and you
Absolutely
have it on your iPad.
Absolutely.
But I can have it up to date until I'm on board the boat. I'm going to depart tomorrow, but I'm on the boat today. I can, get internet access today and get the latest information today, one day before I depart. So that's as close as possible to get. Oh, let me mention one other thing. Frank talked about earlier the BNMs, the broadcast notices to mariners. You can subscribe to those by email. So if you're able to receive your email when the Coast Guard puts out a new broadcast notice to mariners, you're going to get it over your email. Okay.
And we actually have a Navtex receiver, Furono Navtex receiver on board Navigator that's actually getting that same information on that Navtex receiver.
Right. It's a Furono Navtex dedicated receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nancy asked, what is the turnaround time to get printed charts once ordered from Bucksmont? Fast.
Yeah.
A day.
I've had it come in like 2 days later.
I get them a day after I order them. Like he prints them that day and sends them, and I'm a 1-day UPS. I get them the next day. So very fast.
He's very efficient. He's very efficient.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I've actually had him print them, and I've picked them up from them in like a couple of hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as I say, we've been dealing with them for 30 years now. And if you go there and say, I want these charts printed, and by the way, Tom sent me, you're going to get great service. Right?
Yeah. Okay. So Tom, I don't know if we even want to get into this, but do you know when the updated ASA 105 exam will be available? So do we want to talk about how we do the exam or?
I'm not sure I get the question. The updated ASA 105 exam?
ASA is is having a new exam.
Okay. All right. We use our exam.
Right. So we are not required to use the ASA exam.
We don't use the ASA exam. We use our exam.
We use the Tom Tercy exam. And if you do the course with us, we're using Tom's materials. He is teaching you. We use his exam. He grades the exam. There's continuity through there. We are not required by ASA to use their exam. as long as we have a method for verifying your knowledge for the ASA
Standards.
standards, thank you. As long as we have a way that we're verifying your knowledge of the standards, we do not have to use their exact exam. We use Tom's exam. It is one of the reasons we can have you take the exam at home, because we are not sending the ASA exam. Rose asks, hi, Rose. Are you creating a personal chart catalog on the custom chart sites for future updates and printing? That's an interesting question.
I have not done that, but I would urge you to do it, Rose. It's an easy thing to do, for your own personal preferences. Is this Rose Whitty?
Yes, Rose Whitty.
Hi, Rose. How are you?
Okay, so, well, I will answer this. This is kind of an individual question, but I get this question a lot. Rebecca says she signed up for the navigation 4 years ago. She has materials, but life got in the way and she never finished the class. The materials are not still current. However, if you signed up for the home study or the navigation course and have not taken the exam, you still get a significant discount because you've paid for the exam. Okay, so the exam is a significant portion of that
Home study.
fee. Okay, so if you've signed up for that, your materials are out of date. You may not have to replace them all, but you would have to, because 4 years ago, there were two editions since then. So you would want to, if you want to take Tom's class, I will update your materials, deduct the amount you previously paid for the exam. So if you have that type of situation, just email me. I have your records. I will let you know what it'll cost depending on if you want to do a home study or if you want to do Tom's class, but you will have a discounted price. Ralph asks, on PDF charts, can you specify spacing of meridians to facilitate use of the protractor triangle?
No. I mean, they're whatever they are on the No ENC when you download it. So I'm not aware of any ability to do that.
Okay, David asks.
But let me add this as a thought. Once you have downloaded the PDF file to your computer, I believe you can draw a line, just an add-on line, put a vertical line on that PDF, but that's a PDF function as opposed to an NCC function.
Okay.
You can draw lines on a PDF on your computer.
I'm sorry, you done?
So I believe you can do that.
Okay. I missed an earlier question. I was just reviewing, and this is a good one. On a smaller sailboat, 30 feet, is a tablet or iPad better to use than a laptop? And I know, Tom, you use both, right? So.
Well, I use both because I'm more facile with the Windows laptop than I am with an iPad. I still swear at my iPad. But on a 30-foot boat, what I recommend is that you have a lap board. You take a piece of birch plywood, 1/2 inch thick, and cut it about 15 by 20 inches, and put a coat of varnish on it, not too thick, so you don't want it glossy. Use that as a lap board, and you sit in your salon, and you have that lap board on your lap, and you have your charts, even if they're full-size charts, folded into quarters, and you can work on your lap board. Most boats under 40 feet are not going to have very adequate nav stations. So most boats in that size range, I think the lap board is the way to go, but I recommend use the paper charts, even on the smaller boats. You're just not I just don't recommend you take your charts out in the cockpit. That's all. They get wet.
Okay,
Yeah,
does,
if I can
go ahead,
make a
Frank.
comment here. When I was on my boat was a 45-foot center cockpit, and we would travel up and down the coastline. I had a chart book, the MapTech chart book down at my nav table. I had a laptop running down there running Coastal Explorer. I had a Raymarine chart plotter at the navs at the um,
Helm.
binnacle at the helm. I had my iPad on a separate holder on the at the binnacle, and then I had a flip book that had the ICW on 5 foot or 5 nautical mile or 5 statute mile steps right there. So I had 5 different sources of information available all the time, and each one was giving me different pieces of information that allowed me to maintain my trip. So I don't think this is an either or. I think it's, yeah, take everything you can, and if you have a dirt sniffing dog, keep him on board too, so you'll know if the dog starts going, there's dirt over there, you're too close.
You need five heads to track all that, right, Frank?
Oh, absolutely. No, it was because there was different data. The chart plotter, the Raymarine chart plotter was usually in tight, showing me the actual area I was in. The flip book showed me the next 5 miles. The chart book showed me the day's travel, and Rose Point was full of local information. Everything had data.
And the dog.
And the dogs. I had 2 dogs, one facing forward, one facing backwards.
Okay. Okay. So we have a whole bunch of questions here on the compass rose. I'm going to try to put them together. The compass rose on the when we put it on the NCC chart, which a couple of people asking you to show that, but I think these comments were before you did. But it is up to date, correct? When you put it on the chart, it's up to date.
Yeah, you're talking about the variation. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
up to date.
Okay, and yes, it's location dependent. So wherever you put it on the chart, it's going to be for that location.
Yeah.
Wait. Let me comment on that. It may be up to date. It may say up to date as of a certain date. That date might have been a year ago.
Right.
Well, no, if I put it on the chart now, it's doing that calculation, that merit.
Oh, is it doing it today?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because when you put it on the chart, where you put it is going to change the variation for that location.
Gotcha. But the other thing is the deviation, that is the compass deviation. And if you go to our YouTube video on compass calibration, then you learn how to calibrate your compass, because there's 2 things. You got true, magnetic, and compass. Variation is the difference between true and magnetic, right? That's on the compass rose. But the difference between magnetic and your compass is deviation, and deviation is a boat-specific thing. And you have to do a compass calibration, which we do on our cruises. Every time we go out on those, we do to teach that method. Is detailed in great detail on that YouTube video. So to get to what you steer on your compass when you're driving the boat, you need deviation for that difference between magnetic and what is this compass actually saying. Okay, that's one. But the other part is, when we get our charts printed, we don't put the compass rose on, for the reason that we do our plotting in true, and we get it directly off the chart. We use the triangle to measure that angle of the course that we're trying to hold in true, and then we do the simple arithmetic TVMDC to convert that true to magnetic to compass for steering. Or if we are holding a certain course on the compass in compass values, we use TVMDC to convert it back to true to plot that course on the chart. So we don't put the compass rose on the chart, because doing the TVMDC arithmetic is very easy once you have the deviation calibration for your compass. Okay, so we calibrate the compass. we look up the variation, which is the difference between true and magnetic, and we just use TVMDC. So we never use a compass rose on the chart. That's our method.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to plot in true than it is in magnetic or compass.
And you're going to be doing that offshore anyway.
Okay, great. Let's see. Okay, Rose asked, and I'm going to read this to you because can you address that some custom charts are in the scale of the smaller scale chart in that area? For example, the difference between the New York Harbor chart when the selected area is the same as the original PDF, then the detail is lost.
Yeah. What's happening is the different areas are being shown on the same chart with different levels of detail, and we have that. We've seen that happen with when we in the area of the Chester River, for example, in the area right around the approaches to either Swan Creek or Kent Narrows, because there's a lot more data for the soundings in those areas. That area becomes very, very dense and has a lot of information that tends to get overridden. And in order to fix that, we actually have to we've created smaller charts of those areas where the dimensions are much greater, so that the soundings move further and further apart on the physical piece of paper. Seen the same thing happen in and I'm drawing a complete blank on what chart I printed it on, but I've seen that same thing happen. And what you have to do is you have to create the big chart for example, we create a chart of the Chester River, and then we do 11 by 17s of the approaches to Swan Creek and Kent Narrows, and those 11 by 17s, we change the scale on those to move the soundings further apart so that we don't overwrite a bunch of data.
Let me show an example of that, what Frank's talking about. And I guess I have to take the screen back. Share. Okay, do you see a chart on screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So this is Rose, this is around Juan de Fuca. And you see this part of the chart where you have these all these depth numbers here. I mean, many of them, right? Wait a minute. I gotta move something. Just blow this up a little bit. But you see this right here? You see all these depth numbers that are showing? Okay. Now, it depends on the paper size and the scale of the chart that you choose. So as Frank was just saying, for those congested areas like this, if you just have this scale large enough, that is small enough number, so it's going to be a matter of playing around with the scale and the paper size that you're printing on in order to get these numbers to spread out. Because if you do choose the right scale and the right paper size, they will spread out. See, I'm going way in right now, but that will happen.
But you have to create those as two separate charts to get them printed on PDFs. You can do this very easily. This is when, Tom, when you were talking earlier about taking your iPad and checking the chart rather than printing it. This is where you could use that. Yeah. But if you're actually going to create physical charts, you're going to have to make two different charts.
Yeah. Rita, I'm not sure if we're answering Rose's question. Do you want to let Rose speak? And
Rose, let's see, Rose. Rose, go ahead and try to unmute yourself. Hold on a second. Bear with me. Okay, Rose, you should be able to unmute yourself now if you're still there. Are you still there?
Yeah, hi everyone.
Hi, Erin. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Good to hear you all and see you all. I guess this is just a complaint section that I would have to present because I understand how to get the detailed charts that I want, but the fact that I have to do it on different charts, like this New York Harbor chart, it's not that great of an area, but it's not just two charts. It's like sometimes in some areas it's 3 or 4 charts. And I've addressed this with NOAA, and I think they might be working on it. But just so people know that that can be an issue. If you want your good old chart that you've always loved, you might have to print it in 2 or 3, or in the case of New York Harbor, 4 charts to get the detail that you want. So, yeah.
The original 12272 actually had 3 different charts on the same piece of paper because they put in insets. And what you're doing here is because the Coast Guard or the NOAA system doesn't allow that, you're actually having to create your own insets.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so that good old New York Harbor charts, basically now 4 different charts, it seems like. So it's a complaint I have about that, but something to be aware of.
Rose, you're just in a rut. You're gonna have to throw away those charts and get to all these modern electronics.
I keep my old PDF, the last issue of the New York Harbor chart, and I update it because that's how much I love that chart, the way it was. But that's just me. But yeah. So anyhow, that's yeah, that's my complaint on that. That's my comment on my comment.
Thanks, Rose. So Ali says, I've contacted NOAA about this issue specifically with examples. The answer was, we are aware and working on this. This was over a year ago. For now, your best solution is to make a second custom chart at a slightly larger scale to allow more detail and more room for the labels to draw. So, okay. So Susan says, when Tom printed the chart off the NOAA website, it looked like a raster chart. Did it include any updated information such as depth contours?
It included the latest information as of when I created it. So it looks like a raster chart, and if you want to think of it that way, you've produced a raster chart, okay? But basically you're producing it from vector information. But as of that moment, it looks the same as an old PDF chart.
Okay, great. Chip says, Tom mentioned 105 on January 11, 12. Confused. Okay, so it's January 11th, 25th, and February 8th. They are the 3 dates. ASA announced that a formal certification on electronic navigation is coming soon. Do I have to have a sextant when I take 107? There's a good question. Tom, do you want to take that?
Not to take the class, because we'll go through. The class basically is addressing the concepts, the theories, and the calculations. It's not so much the actual physical handling of the sextant, but we will talk about the sextant, and I will demonstrate use of the sextant. And in fact, we have one of our YouTube videos is sextant basics that goes through talking about the sextant. But to take the class, you do not need the sextant.
Okay, great. And we've talked a lot about it.
I'm going to step in here real quick. I would recommend that you not buy a sextant. If you don't have a sextant now, don't buy a sextant until you take the class, because Tom's going to introduce you to some concepts that are going to help you make a decision about what you actually want in a sextant. So Tom is going to guide you that way.
And yeah, and then the 108, you will use the sextant. So the 108 is just as the cruise, the 104, the 106 cruise helps you put that into practice. The 108 helps you put the celestial into practice and use the sextant. We have mentioned the YouTube channel a lot here. If you go to YouTube, there's two ways to find it. If you go to YouTube and type in MD School of Sailing, all one word, that's our channel, MD School of Sailing. Or you can go to our website, mdschool.com, and on the left-hand border of every page, there is a link to our channel. And if you go to the channel, there's playlist for different, so there is a playlist under 105, which is coastal navigation. There's a playlist that says 107, which is celestial navigation. So I know we've mentioned a lot. I've put some of the links in the chat, but the best way is just to go to the channel and see what's there. We have a lot there. Tom, are you somebody? Okay.
That was me.
Okay, go ahead. So you wanna?
I was just showing that.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Mike says it's worth noting that the definition of NOAA charts you create with the chart tool can be saved in chart catalogs. I think that's what Rose was saying. This lets you retrieve a set of charts and update them with the most current information without having to recreate from scratch. Yes. Please comment on apps such as Argo, iNavX. Are you familiar with them at all?
Go ahead, Frank.
I have used iNavX in the past. I wasn't as thrilled with it. It was when I used it 5-10 years ago, it used the raster charts, and so as you actually went in, it became less and less useful. I believe they now use the ENC data. I also, one of my big things was Aquamaps. I used Aquamaps a lot because Aquamaps would actually also use the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer survey data and would put that over the ENC information. The other one, what was the first one, Rita?
Argo.
Argo, I've never heard of, so I can't speak to that one.
Okay. And then somebody did mention Aquamap. Let's see.
I'm going to just mention that research that I've done for alternate sources of this stuff is I don't think any of these are except there are 5 that I mentioned earlier. I don't think any of these others are using up-to-date information. They're using old information. That's my big thing about having the latest information. Do you see my website or the website?
Yes.
Yeah. So Rita was talking about this, and what I usually recommend is come to this part on our website and just go to free educational videos on YouTube, and you come to this and you get the whole thing. And then you can go to the videos or the playlists. The playlists are for different course levels and so forth, different groupings. Or the complete list of the videos. I mean, there's 40 or so videos here, right? So I'll get off of that.
Okay, so the NOAA navigation updates tool lets you view changes that have occurred to a selected area in a selected time frame. So I think we have talked about that. Okay, so Steve mentions British Admiralty as a chart supplier. Okay, we've had some of these questions have been answered already.
One of the things I want to mention about British Admiralty, when you buy a British Admiralty chart and you pay handsomely for it. They use very thick paper. This paper they use is almost like cardboard. And one of the reasons I like the light 20-pound paper is that it's not thick. And when I draw on it with a pencil line, it does not make an impression in that piece of paper. And I erase that line, it's fully erased. When I go to a British Admiralty chart paper and I draw a line on it, I created an impression. It's like a gully. And I try to erase that line, it never erases completely. So I very much dislike the British Admiralty chart paper. That's my opinion on that.
But you get our opinions.
Somebody asked, will the chat notes and comments be provided with the Zoom recording? It depends whether we use the Zoom. The problem with the Zoom recording is it's not letting us have both our presenters on screen at a time, which I found kind of annoying. It keeps flipping back and forth. So we'll see what we get. We may end up putting it on our YouTube channel and sending you to the link to that. However, anybody who attended, we are going to send the AI summary notes as well. I will send that to you directly. So you'll have that. And then let's see, Bucksmont does not have an order page. Just email Mark or give them a call. Updates to the NOAA online charts can take up to 10 days, generally done every week.
Follow that, yeah. What?
Yeah, that's just it's a comment, so I don't know if that's.
Well, it's updated every. Oh, let me mention one thing about the NOAA ENC and the update. The configuration of waterways and navigational aids, buoys and beacons and so forth that show on the ENC and will also show in the NCC PDF that you create are going to be basically what I will call the design configuration. In other words, the Coast Guard has put this buoy here that's intended as a permanent buoy. That shows up in the ENC database and on the NCC chart that you configure, okay? Now, that's part of what the design configuration of the waterway and the navigational aids. Now, tomorrow a storm comes through and wipes out this beacon, this buoy that's in there, all right? That does not change in the NOAA ENC. The NOAA ENC will still show the design configuration with that buoy in that location, even though it's now gone. Okay? So the NOAA ENC does not show temporary changes. And when the storm came through and destroyed that buoy, that's a temporary change. All right? The temporary changes are going to be shown in the local notices to mariners, which is why when we do our nav prep for a cruise, we identify all of the navigational aids. And if there's a deficiency, we can look that up in the notices to mariners, or we can now look it up in this brand new configuration that was published yesterday that Frank went through. Okay, the new configuration for the marine safety information on the Coast Guard website, that's going to state in there, if you go to that buoy in that publication of the MSI publication of the Coast Guard, that will show if it was destroyed. Now, it might not show it today if it was destroyed yesterday, but it might show it in a week, okay? But then the Coast Guard will also put out the broadcast notices to mariners of something that happened interweek, between the updates, the weekly updates that they make. So these supporting references will try to keep you up to date. But the key thing I want to point out is the NOAA ENC only shows the design configuration of the waterway and naves. It does not show temporary changes. Now, having said that, some of the temporary changes could be 2 years old.
And
They will continue to show in the notices to mariners.
I will. I want to build on that just a little bit. It doesn't exist until somebody tells the Coast Guard that it exists, and it doesn't stop existing until somebody tells the Coast Guard that it stopped existing. There was a thing in the local notice to mariners beginning of this last season saying that 2 of the 8s to navigation into Swan Creek were off station. And they were not off station. It's just somebody had told the Coast Guard they were off station. And so the Coast Guard doesn't come back behind it and go, well, is it really off station? They just put it out there. And then eventually somebody told them, no, it's not off station, and that cleared. But even that information, even the local notice to mariners, isn't 100% accurate all of the time. It's the best we get.
So you have to be accustomed to using these supporting references. The NOAA ENC and NCC get you vastly closer to today's truth, but it may not be the final. But there are methods, and if you develop the methods which we teach on our cruises, and Frank outlined earlier in our discussion about going through this stuff in preparation, you can get the latest information.
As good as it gets.
Yeah. But remember, it's not a perfect world out there. Okay.
Kent made note that his local office supply store sells a wide format printer for under $300. He uses 24-pound paper that's 150 feet long. And then he says, can you print your own NCC charts? Give it a try and let us know. I think probably Mark's printer costs more than $300, so it might be a quality thing, but maybe it will. Maybe they'll demonstrate it for you.
Yeah, Mark's printer is about a $10,000 printer. So
yeah. Gordon says AIS aids are being used. Are these for commercial vessels with that equipment? How important are these to pleasure boaters?
I'm going to give you 2 answers, one quick one and one long one. The first, the quick one is those, if you have AIS on your boat, you're going to see them just like they were real, just like everybody else. The other thing I'm going to say is I'm going to put a plug for, I'm doing a webinar next month on AIS for collision avoidance, but we'll talk about some navigation stuff. And so come back and I'll talk more about that.
Right. We will be putting that out soon after we get past this one. Larry says, and I think this goes back to your comment of having all your different references. He says, Frank is my kind of sailor, belts and suspenders.
Oh, I'm belts and suspenders, and staple it to your waist and glue it in place with a little bit of duct tape just to have it there. I am 100% into, I don't want to go too far off track here, but I will tell you that I just found out about something called the Honda Point casualty, or Honda Point, where over 6 U.S. naval destroyers between World War I and World War II ran aground off Honda Point in California because they were all doing dead reckoning, and there was radio direction finding information that they ignored because it didn't fit into their dead reckoning. And like I said, over 6 of them ran aground because they all turned at the same spot, thinking they were at a certain place and didn't. Okay. The more information, if you have information that's not making sense, that you have a chart plotter's telling you one thing and your dead reckoning's telling you something else, if you can't, there's no such thing as a too nervous navigator.
Yeah, stop and
figure it out.
Figure it out, right? Yeah.
Okay. Somebody here says, Mr. or Mrs. Brooks, I don't know the first name. Scenario, a few months ago, the Bay Bridge was closed off due to a paddleboard race crossing the bay. we heard the BNM over VHF, but other recreational boaters ignored the notice, claiming ignorance over the radio.
Yeah, and that showed that.
Oh, wait, okay. Seems like the RSS feed would have informed us directly, as would checking the BNM site from what we learned today. We'll do better next time. Also curious about the Furuno device, not familiar with it. Would that help, or is it overkill for most of us?
Well, I'm not sure who most of us is, but this is information that I got looking at the Furuno website on the MFD12. It says that it uses the NOAA ENC data. I don't have any firsthand experience with it, but I was just going off what their website was saying. By the way, on that paddleboard event, that shows up in the notice to mariners. So if you've done your due diligence before you did that cruise, and one of the things we'll do is take the local notice to mariners, in addition to checking nav aids, we'll also make inquiries, control find in that PDF on things like dredges. Is there a dredge operating where you are? Are there channel closings? Are there any closings? So basically, there's a lot of information in the local notices to mariners. They usually run 50, 60, 70 pages with a lot of info. And part of your due diligence is to search those things before you go.
And just in case the Furuno unit you're talking about was the Navtex receiver, that's a really old school technology. That probably is overkill. The only time we actually use it is when we get close to Bermuda, because it's getting a radio signal, a long wave radio signal, and it doesn't really work well in the U.S. waters, but it works really, really well offshore.
Okay. Steve mentions the updated variation tables are updated every 5 years. The new one for 2025 is due out on the 17th of December. Frank, can you put in the chat the link to the declination up, like you can put a location in on the.
Well, I'll show you that.
Okay.
Well, go ahead, I'll find it and then I'll show it to you.
Okay.
It's off the NavCen, NOAA NavCen website.
Okay.
Is there another question while he's doing that?
Yeah, probably not enough time to get into this. So I think you can answer this, but keep it brief. Can these exports be loaded into OpenCPM, which I know you're familiar with? I use OpenCPM for trip planning. Would be nice to have the exact custom printed chart in the OpenCPN.
I can't speak to the OpenCPN because I've never used it. I can tell you that it can be loaded, but I don't know exactly what the question is there.
Oh, I missed the question. What was the question?
He says, if the export, so I'm assuming he's meaning the chart that you're exporting, be loaded. I'll read exactly. Can these exports be loaded in OpenCPN?
If the question is, can we use the NOAA ENC charts in OpenCPN, you work that through. I've used OpenCPN, so I know this. When you go to OpenCPN and there's an option for loading charts, and you can go directly to that option in OpenCPN and choose the type of charts that you want to load, and they'll load directly into it as long as you're connected to the internet.
Yes. Okay, great. Frank, do you want to do that quickly? I don't know how you guys are doing, but
this chart I've showed you on screen. This is the NOAA declination. Declination is what we call magnetic variation. So basically, you show your location and the year that you want and so forth, and you can get magnetic variation for any location on Earth.
Okay.
There's the the thing.
Okay, great. Bobby Joe says she's wondering if there are any workbooks I can get to practice doing bearings running fixes. Bobby Joe, the book on our school store that we use in the navigation class is available on the school store. So I'd recommend, first of all, taking the nav class. And you know, it's a great winter activity. Or if you want to, you can just purchase the books on the school store. So you go to website, navigate to school store, and you can purchase the books. Okay. Skimming through. Oh, it says you can save the chat yourself. So if you want the chat, there's probably a way to do that. And I do think we get a copy of the chat. So if we do, we can do that. Just see, there's a lot of comments. I just want to see if there's any other question. Oh, top of the chat, there are 3 dots. Click on that and it says save chat. Top of the chat, there are 3 dots. Yes. Okay. And save chat. All right. Very good. So, where the top of the chat is, which is below the people, you know, you've got the participants below that. It says December 7th Q&A changes in the note, and then right next to that's 3 dots. Click on that and save chat. Thank you. Okay.
Are we about wrapped up, Reed?
Yeah, we're out of time here. Why electronic chart? When I was planning my route during sailing solo from Amsterdam to Lorca by ocean, it was giving me the route over land. This is a specific to a specific chart plotter, I think. Yeah, I don't know what that is. It's saying the chart, okay, so this is an automatic. I think what they're saying is, take me from here to there and plot my route. Yeah. And it was going over land. So
now, let me make a general comment about anything automatic in this stuff. Anything automatic, I turn off, I trash, I get rid of it. I want to do every step manually so I know what I'm doing.
Right. Okay. Skimming through. Canadian Water, see Canadian Hydrographic Service site. So right. I think that would be charts.
Yeah.
Hold on, skipping through. Okay. A lot of these we either asked.
Well, Rita,
somebody commented that Captain Frank and Captain Tom know exactly where they are on the planet at all times. Very cool. Thanks for the presentation.
Yeah, I'm in Bermuda, right?
Yeah, you're in Bermuda. Okay.
Look, Rita, from here on, why don't we just say that any additional questions by email, we'd be glad to answer them.
Right. I was just going to say, go ahead. If we missed, mostly it looks like comments from here on and thanking us for presentation. Thank you. Thank you. So Frank and Tom, thank you so much. And if we have not answered your questions, go ahead and email office@mdschool.com and we will take care of you. And we will see you at either the NAV class and or the next webinar. Okay.
Happy sailing.
Okay.
Stay warm, everybody.
Day. It's 1:15 Bermuda time to have lunch. Okay.
Bye.
Captain Tom Tersey, many of you know, even if you are not familiar with our school, he's a prolific writer. He is very, he's an expert on all things navigation. So he had written the ASA books on coastal navigation. They were adopted by ASA, used for many, many years. He's also written books on celestial navigation and many other books that we use at the school, all of our training plans, docking techniques, which was also adopted by ASA. And Tom's been he has a U.S. Coast Guard 100-ton master's license. He's an ASA certified instructor from 101 through 108. He's part owner of the Maryland School of Sailing. He teaches our navigation and offshore classes at this point, the Delmarvas, and occasionally the Bermudas. And he's the driving force behind everything that the school does and stands for. He does teach our live 105 and 107 classes over the winter months. And so we'll be talking about that a little bit because that does support what we're going to talk about today. And Tom's been a lifelong sailor. He's owned a number of racing and cruising sailboats, and he's completed over 70,000 miles of blue water ocean sailing throughout the world, in addition to extensive coastal cruising. So that's Captain Tom. Captain Frank Mummert he's been an instructor for us for more than 10 years. He does teach from ASA 101 through ASA 108. And he currently holds a U.S. Coast Guard 100-ton Ocean Master license. Frank and Suzanne spent most of their time living on a sailboat, so he is a solid cruiser. They kept it at Langford Bay Marina, which is our home port, for many years. In 2023, they built a house in Brock Hall, so they're now landlubbers. But he's well known at the school. If you come to the school, you're going to see Frank. He is a certified ASA master instructor, which means that he can certify other instructors. So this is a kind of a big deal. And he's qualified to teach from ASA 101 through 108, and he does. So he will teach a lot of our basic level classes, all the way through ocean passage making. And this is important to us because we are well known for our ocean program, but our basic level classes support those programs. And not all of our students who come take classes wish to go offshore. However, we back all of that down into our basic level classes. Whatever we want you to do at 108, we're going to teach you to do at 101. So this is important that our ocean instructors teach at the 101 level. And Frank exemplifies that. He really enjoys docking. So many of you I know have taken docking classes with us, both from Frank and our other instructors. And Frank's been a driving force behind what we do for many years now with that regard. Let's see, what else? So Frank's earned an ASA Outstanding Instructor Award twice now for, I believe it was 2016 and 2022. Okay, so thank you, Frank and Tom, for doing this important topic for us. And I am going to now turn this over to you. And so we had started out with a lot of our students making the comment, like, what do we do when paper charts go away? And Tom's response to that is, paper charts are not going away. We're just handling them differently. So Tom, why do you say that?
Yeah, well, thank you, Rita. And Rita, thank you for that generous introduction. And good morning, everyone. Thanks for participating in this webinar.